All right, so I think the stream's ready to go though. So hello everybody, Maker X here, back at it again to give you another very exciting video. And for tonight, I have none other than Loki episode 4 to go through and discuss with y'all tonight. Yes, I know I'm not doing this at the normal time as what I would have done last night on my typical Thursday nights, but this is a Friday night, so I was like, hey, you gotta mix some things up or whatever though. But I'm here to talk about this, and yes, by golly, whole shoot. Thank goodness that we have a better episode with episode 4 in comparison to what we had with episode 3, because 1 and 2, it's your traditional opening. You get your rise in action, whatever. Though 3 kind of put it all in a big loop. There was probably only one critical moment that you probably need to pull away from episode 3, and I literally gave the synopsis for the last week's episode. And if you would just listen to that, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have missed one beat on this though. But episode 4, this is where we get into the meat and potatoes of the series. Like, this is where it strikes the good stuff. There was quite a bit of stuff. There were some funny moments right here, things that got me to crack and laugh. The ooh moments, like I was like, oh shoot, I didn't think they were gonna take that twist. And then that very ending, I was like, oh my goodness, they are going there. We see this happen with some other Marvel movies, the not Marvel movies, see some other with Marvel characters in terms of multiverses and different characters with different alter egos and stuff, which I'll talk about that a little later in the show. But I did not think they would do it with Loki though. But honestly, a lot of good stuff that was happening within this episode. And oh man, there's quite a bit to talk about tonight. So we might as well go ahead and jump up in it though. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive straight up into this episode review for Marvel's Disney Plus show Loki. Alrighty. So, a young Sylvie is abducted from an alternate Asgard by a Minuteman unit led by Ravonna Rainslayer and brought into the Time Variance Authority. There, she witnesses a fellow variant being restrained as he attempted to flee and is subjected to to the extensive screening process. She eventually escapes before a courtroom hearing by biting Renslayer and using her TemPad to travel to alternate timelines. In the present day, Renslayer meets with the timekeepers in Resgard to Sylvie. She chats with Mobius and Mobius afterward, and informing him that Hunter C20 has passed after being subjected to Sylvie's influence. Mobius is then pressed by Renslayer to locate and capture the two Loki variants. With the destruction of Lamentis 1 imminent, Loki and Sylvie prepare for their demises. Sylvie reflects on her past as a lifelong fugitive of the TVA, hiding from within numerous apocalypses events and eventually dying in one. When Sylvie asks about what makes up a Loki, Loki states that they still only continue to survive in the face of death. The pair begin to hold hands, which creates a nexus spike that is detected by the TVA. They are arrested in the nick of time and brought back into the office, where they are taken into separate time theaters. As Mobius prepares to throw Loki into a time cell, he is informed that he had been lied to by the TVA about his origins, but brushes it aside. The time cell being a reincarnation of Loki's past, he encounters Sif, enraged at him for cutting her hair. She punches him, to the ground and walks away, only to return mere moments later and repeat her actions. Loki recognizes that he was being trapped in a time loop. I gotta stop right there because for a second there, that was like one of the comedic moments right there. Just seeing him interact with one of his old time friends, back when in Thor or whatever, though, and just being thrown in that time loop over and over. Like there were some moments I was like, oh, okay, that was funny the first time though, and then it's like, all right, Loki's like, all right, enough, and he was like trying to say, you know what, I learned my lesson, whatever though. I'm not gonna act that way. I know I did that in the past. It was wrong. And it, they literally set it up to where it almost looked like she was about to forgive him, and then still rinse, washes, and repeats it. I just like that one little funny moment right there. It was just pretty good right there. Now, on the other hand, Mobius returns to Renslayer and unsuccessfully afterwards to convince her to allow him to interrogate Sylvie. Coming across Hunter B-15 outside of her time theater, he relays Loki's words about the TVA to her. After Loki manages to break free from the time loop by confessing his narcissism to Sif, Mobius retrieves him from the cell and interrogates him about Sylvie and about, essentially in what he had to say earlier. Now, Loki claims to be using her as a pawn for her own means, but his true feelings about her are revealed to Mobius when he falsely tells her that she has been pruned by B-15. Loki then elaborates on his words, declaring that everyone that works for the TVA, including Mobius, were all ordinary people living on the sacred timeline before being abducted by the timekeepers. Mobius continues to deny this, closing the case and sending Loki back into the time cell. And elsewhere, B-15 considers Loki's revelations beginning to recognize memories that were repressed by the timekeepers, recalling her prior enthrallment by Sylvie. She takes her back to 2050 Roxcart under the belief that the memories were deceptions. Sylvie tells her otherwise before B-15 invites her to probe her mind. B-15 begins to tear up as she remembers her past life. Meanwhile, as Renslayer celebrates their apparent victory with Mobius, he secretly swaps his TemPad out with hers and excuses himself out early. Retreating to the library, Mobius peeps into the C20's file on the device and comes across a recent compromising record or recording, should I say, of her with Renslayer present, realizing that Loki was correct about the TVA all along. Now, I will say this, my gut feeling said, and I think it was roughly around episode 2 where I was like, you know what? I was like, they're setting up the TVA to be this group of people. Yes, in the comics, the whole TVA thing is true. The whole thing about the timekeepers and them protecting the sacred timeline is true to a level of degree. But then again, this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They do take the origins of it, put it in the shows, have a lot of Easter eggs and stuff to the comics, but they might not necessarily follow the script down to exact T. They will do their own twists and they will do their own modifications to keep things fresh, so that way longtime fans of Marvel within the comic series, you'll get a little twist of it within the MCU itself. So I was like, okay, I had a sneaking suspicion that somebody else is pulling the strings. And I knew that this one lady right here was the one that kind of knew everything, but she didn't want to really have that truth exposed, or at least not to the other members that work within the TVA. Now, Mobius retrieves Loki again from the time cell, only to come across Renslayer, who had learned of the TemPad swap. As Mobius pleads to return back to when he came from, she orders him to be pruned as Loki watches on helplessly. Reuniting with Sylvie, who was eventually recaptured by the Minutemen, Renslayer has them both face the Timekeepers to await deletion. We finally get to see these Timekeepers, the ones that were supposed to protect the sacred timeline. Now, Sylvie attempts to forcefully um, confront them are prevented with Renslayer's control of their time twister. But B-15 frees them and hands Loki his sword. B-15 is quickly taken out by the supervising Minutemen, leaving Loki to fight with them alone while Sylvie directly confronts Renslayer. Both eventually take down their enemies. Sylvie then uses Loki's sword to decapitate one of the timekeepers, revealing them to be mindless androids all along. As their as their pair plan their next move, Loki prepares to confess to Sylvie, but Renslayer returns and prunes him with her baton. Sylvie quickly disarms her, intending them to reveal the truth to the TVA. And that's basically the end of the episode, at least for the most part. But I'll save that last little tidbit and one little discussion in itself once I talk about everything else that happened in this episode previously. So, whole freaking shoot. That was a crap ton of stuff that has happened within this episode alone. And I was like, thank you, Marvel. This is where, where the going gets good right here, though. Because man, oh man, just looking at the very beginning of the episode, or this episode, I was like, dang, I was like, you know what? The way how they left it off within episode 3, it made it seem like we knew someone had to come in and rescue them because all their options of escape were out. And I was like, I was wondering who was going to come to the rescue. And the big question was how, because they didn't know exactly what apocalypse they could be hiding in. Because, otherwise they would kind of stand out as a sore thumb within any other regular spot in time and space. But literally, them having a heart to heart discussion and literally both of them almost forming feelings for each other was the reason that caused that big spike in a Nexus event that basically was like a red flag saying, help me, this is where I am. And I was like, you know what? Only Loki could fall in love with another version, form, alternate reality of himself. Like only Loki will be able to do that. And as Mobius mentioned earlier, or mentioned during that episode, that's something that only something that a Loki would do. Literally fall in love with an alter ego of himself, like a sort of kind of sick, twisting, like I don't even know what you want to call it though, but it ain't like naturally, like this ain't normally supposed to happen, and only he would be somebody that will actually do it. That right there kind of made me crack up. I mean, it still felt nice. I mean, it's still two different, people at the end of the day, but at the same time, they're one of the same almost in a level degree. So I don't know. It was sort of kind of sweet, but also it just felt so weird, but only a thing that Loki could do. And I was like, you know what, that was just kind of cracking me up, at least for the better half of this whole entire episode. So I was like, okay, that was pretty nice right there. And also, I got to give mad respects to the hunter for B15 because I honestly she felt like she was the MVP of this thing. Literally was the one that was like, you know what, I'm sort of kind of questioning, just like Mobius. Mobius, it took him a little bit more time to be able to understand and come to his realization that you know what, the TVA might not be all what it's cracked out to be, because literally Loki started to put some of the cracks within the foundation of what he thought of the TVA, and how literally they've been all told that, hey, you know what? The TVA has found all of these members. They were created by the timekeepers in order to protect the sacred timeline and stuff. Loki started putting the cracks up in there because he already, as him being a trickster, could already put one and two together to make three. So I'm like, oh, okay. So it was really interesting to kind of see how his perceptions of the TVA was sort of kind of altered throughout this episode, though. But B15 was catching on a little faster than Mobius himself. And I just like how she kind of came in with the big assist. Literally, it was like, I'm going to talk to Sylvia. I'm going to go ahead and, have her alter my memories and basically expose the truth, because I wanted to know what I saw back then a couple of episodes ago. And then she literally came up in there during the meeting with the timekeepers and was there literally throwing their swords over there and like literally came to the rescue. Otherwise, they were about to get killed right in front of these quote unquote timekeepers, that which were actually androids at the end of the day, though. So that was really interesting in itself. And also Mobius, though, I was like, man, by the time he finally realized the truth and was trying to, help Loki go ahead and try to save Sylvie and stuff, it was pretty sad, man, to see that dude probe like that. I was like, bruh. I was like, man, I was like, why you gotta kill the good man right there? I was like, man, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I was like, man, I was sort of kind of rooting for this dude because I knew eventually he was gonna come around. I didn't know. I knew he wasn't bad or nothing like that compared to that other woman over there, though. But it was sort of kind of sad to see him go whenever he finally got proved right there. And then obviously Sylvie and Loki were definitely the highlights of this one episode, though, and it was nice to be able to kind of see them, kick butt in traditional fashion right in front of the timekeepers, though, and the fact that those timekeepers were androids, though, oh shoot, that could bring up a whole nother thing right there, because literally I was thinking there could have been real, but then the way how the MCU sort of kind of portrayed them within the series for Loki, I knew that I was like, okay, something's not up with these, or at least these could be imposters standing in front of her, at least at the moment. Like maybe the real ones are out there somewhere that not even the TVA people can actually be able to see, at least not normally. I feel like that's my gut reaction. I still feel like these timekeepers are real somewhere, but I think most of these people that work at the TVA don't actually have access to directly meeting with him. And maybe they sort of kind of set this up to basically still protect themselves, because I feel like if they really were gone, things would really be clashing, things would be really going down in a chaotic fashion though. So that's what I feel, at least for my gut check though. So the fact that these ones are fake now just brings up a whole bunch of questions. Why in the world was she so secretive? Why was she probing these people whenever they were sort of kind of getting exposed to the truth, and she was just trying to get rid of the evidence and stuff? Like we saw her literally say, you know what, that one person that Sylvie brainwashed earlier within episode 2, she literally said she that person died, even though she told one of her people to probe the dude. So I was like, okay, so now I think all the truth is about to get exposed within episode 5, and I feel like for that one episode, it's definitely going to be the climax of the season right there, in terms of us getting most of the questions answered, and maybe the heaviest in terms of action intensity and stuff, especially where this episode left off at. And then 6 will kind of conclude that, and then basically put us like in the sort of kind of like what would be almost considered as an epilogue. That's why I'm thinking and hoping that they're probably going to wind up doing, because we only got 2 more episodes left at this point in the game. So honestly, this was a really good solid episode. A solid, I would say, a solid 8 out of 10 right there. I just felt really good about this episode, though. However, that was not the that was not the end all be all for the episode, because towards the very end of the episode, we did get to manage to get a after credit scene. Now we normally get these at the end of every single movie at this point though, but in terms of the Disney Plus shows, they don't do them at every one, but I feel like they do them either once or twice with certain episodes, depending on what's actually happening in terms of the plot for that episode. But yes, we did manage to get one. If you did not see it already, you best to go back to Disney Plus and boot that sucker up and go ahead and view this cutscene right here, because this one I was like, whole freaking shoot. So after the credits roll, and we get to see Loki as he wakes up on a destroyed New York City. It was a destroyed New York City, contemplating if he had landed in, in like hell or something like that, or Hades, whatever you want to call it. But however, he is met with the 4 other Loki variants who invite him to come along to stay alive, and that's where the episode officially ends right there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they definitely went there. They, you know in terms of other Loki variants, like we only saw one. The matter of fact that we literally get to see like 4 different ones right there in front of them. Yes, you do see 3 normal people right there, including the crocodile thing right there. Like literally, that's a Loki in itself. Like you would never think that would have been a Loki right there. Like most people probably would have thought 3, and that's the pet. Technically, that is 4 different Lokis right there. And I'm like, whole freaking shoot. Like literally the only other character that we kind of seen, at least in a cinematic, on the movie screen, was literally like Spider-Man, like Into the Spider-Verse, where we got to see different kind of variations of Spider-Man. Or shoot, you even could think back, what, we had like a regular Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man Far From Home. Like we got to see different variants both in movie form as well as comics that were shown in movies for like the Spider-Man universe. But here we go with almost sort of kind of like a Loki universe or whatever though. Like it's interesting. As a matter of fact, they're pulling this up into play from the comics right here though. And gosh, like that was the good, interesting twist right there. So that makes me believe and think, hey, when they get probed, you basically get sent to some other dimension. Don't know what this dimension is, and they all get sent here literally the second they get probed, and I feel like they just live in this other world so that way they don't affect other deviations from the timeline or whatever though. I feel like that's what happens when they get probed, and maybe there's something running around within this crazy world or dimension or whatever it is that literally goes through and eliminates them, to sort of kind of keep the population in check. Maybe something like that. At least this is what I'm going off of, at least in terms of my theories that I'm running and speculating in my mind right now though. So honestly, this ooh shoot, things are getting really, really interesting. So the fact that they're living, I'm pretty sure Mobius is still living. I think Sylvia's probably still there. I think with these other Lokis helps, I think they're gonna get with our standard Loki. Man, too many Lokis right there though, and be able to kind of gather, round up everybody, and find a way or get make an attempt to be able to get back to the right dimension, right time, where they originally came from. At least get into the TVA, and then from the TVA they can get back to their own worlds and dimensions and times wherever they need to go to. So man, oh shoot, this episode had quite a bit of stuff, and I feel like just this little ending cutscene right here, I think definitely ties into the greater scheme of things in terms of the MCU and what they're trying to do between the Disney Plus shows and what I feel like they're doing within the movies. Because I feel like at least so far with this new saga they got going within starting within Phase 4 that we're in right now, I feel like time is the biggest thing. Like we're literally coming off right off the heels of Endgame, where they had to use time a lot to kind of go back in time and fix things, though. And then we have the time, multiverse, space, whatever, because we know Doctor Strange, multiverse of madness right here, and then we're then like with a sort of kind of multiverse right here with like all these different Loki variants and stuff, dealing with time and stuff with the whole TVA. I feel like it's sort of kind of all gonna be connected and interwoven like that, at least very strongly for phase 4, if not maybe the whole entire saga, which can include like a phase 4, 5, and 6. At least that's just what kind of my running theory is for the moment, though. But y'all gotta let me know down in the comment section down below what all that you think about this episode as a whole. I think this is definitely one of my longest reviews yet, because I definitely, this one episode in itself had a whole lot going in it and a whole lot of things I just kind of want to ramble, kind of express my thoughts about, because there was just a lot to talk about within this one episode alone. But I'm pretty sure the next two episodes are going to be bangers in terms of how it reaches the peak climax, as well as you sort of kind of get that conclusion and epilogue to conclude out this Loki series, though. So that's going to basically do it in terms of this review, though. So if you really like this review, make sure to go ahead and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and that bell to stay up to date on all things Loki that I feel like discussing in terms of these very last two episodes that we still have coming along the way. So remember, y'all, until we're at a video I make next, see y'all.